builds up inside of it a savings account called cash value. It builds up a savings plan so that then later on, if you close the policy, they will write you a check and give you your savings back. So you buy insurance in a sense for $5 and you invest $95 out of every $100 per month. So why is that bad? It's bad for a multitude of reasons. Number one, the rate of return on the typical whole life policy is around 1%, about like your stupid savings account at the bank. And no one builds wealth at 1%. On a universal life, after all the fees, now they quote you a higher rate, but after all the fees, your net is around 4.7%. These are all documented numbers. And on a variable, which has mutual funds in it, by the time the mutual funds get through the hallways of the insurance company, what should have been a 10 or a 12% rate of return ends up looking like about 6% rate of return. So they hit you heavy with the fees. If you want your money out of your quote savings account, out of your quote investment, there's only two ways to get it. One is cancel your policy and lose your insurance, or two is borrow it. Now, wait a minute, you're going to borrow your own money and pay them interest to borrow money you put into an investment. Well, that's stupid, but people do it all the time. People that sell this crap act like that's tax-free return. It's not tax-free, it's borrowed money. You're paying in interest to an insurance company to get your own stinking money. But here's the worst thing. Let's say you buy like a couple of $100,000 policy and you pay into it, you pay into it, you pay into it, you pay into it. Finally, it gets past all these fees and there's $100,000 in there. And you die. Your cash value is $100,000, your face value is $200,000. You die. You know what they pay? $200,000. They pay the face amount. What happened to your $100,000 that you paid $95 per $100 a month extra to build up? Well, we don't know. Apparently, they keep it. You have a savings account that allows a rate of return that when you die, they keep your savings. That's whole life insurance. It is one of the worst financial products in the world. It is the payday lender of the middle class, without a doubt. And the people that sell this stuff should be ashamed of themselves. It's absolutely horrendous. It's sad. And, here's what's really sad. They are really good at selling it. Well, term insurance, your term insurance is going to run out by the time you die. And your family's just going to be left with nothing. You're buying your policy. We're not buying your policy whole life. You quit paying it, you know what? They'll cancel it. You quit paying your term insurance, they'll cancel it. You don't build up equity in this. You are buying equity after they picked your pocket. Some of it builds equity called cash value, but you still lose it all when you die. And so it's absolutely ludicrous, the whole sales process. And, here's the thing. It's 20 times more expensive for the same amount of life insurance. And guess what the agent gets paid their commission on? They get paid their commission on premium. So the agent gets paid on $100 rather than $5 for the same amount of life insurance. And so what ends up happening is people buy this crap and they don't buy enough life insurance to take care of their family. And then they die with these stupid but tiny little whole life policies that are a tenth of what they ought to be. So you ought to have about 10 to 12 times your income on you. Meaning if you make $50,000 a year, you ought to have $500,000, $600,000 life insurance on you. You die, your spouse takes that and invests it. If they make 8 or 10%, then they're creating $50,000 a year. And you've been replaced. That lump sum investment will pay your family what you used to earn before you died. And it's that simple. And it just doesn't cost anything. Term life insurance is very, very inexpensive to get the proper amount. And this is why I have endorsed term life insurance from the very first day I turned on this microphone 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So if
somebody, you know, is a newly licensed person, that could literally be your presentation. Like we have a presentation, but even if you don't know anything, this guy just did all the work. He sold term, he sold investing the difference, he sold why cash value sucked, he sold why agents sell it and what he thinks about them. And he's also saying it's so freaking cheap. That's the thing that we have in our minds is we think $100 a month is a lot. It's like they're out there paying $300-400 a month voluntarily, and we feel bad about asking someone for $100 to protect their family for the right amount of coverage. You have to use these videos, right? And I always use them as well, and I always show them to new agents. So we want to show Susie Orman today. We got to get through. I think theory of decreasing responsibility is a great way to kill cash value because it shows someone a visual of what is going to happen over time. Okay, what this is illustrating is that in the early years, a young couple, they don't have money, so they need a lot of life insurance coverage. Eventually, when they have money, they do not need life insurance coverage. Why? Because today, kids are young, debt is high, mortgage is high, the loss of income would be devastating. So if I was married and if I had young kids and then I die and I'm just an employee who has a job, right? How is my family going to pay the bills if I'm the majority of the income or if I'm half of the income? But if I, God willing, live and I save in my 401k and I save in my retirement and I pay off my debt, eventually my kids are going to be the age I am right now. My kids are going to be in their 30s and 40s. My debt should be paid if I follow the Primerica plan. My mortgage should be paid, right? And I'm going to have a ton of money in my retirement accounts. At that point, I don't need life insurance because if I die after that, guess what? My kids should be supporting themselves. But even if they're not, all of the money I've accumulated for so long, they're going to get that. This idea that in term insurance, if you don't die, your family gets nothing. Well, what kind of financial plan are you on where you literally have no assets, so when you die, your family gets nothing? What financial plan is that? Because, Lynn, do you want to retire one day? What age? 35. She's ambitious. Okay. What do you think the average person, when do you think they're going to retire? 65. Now, you want to retire at 65. What does it take to retire at 65? Right? And we've talked about her. She knows this stuff, right? She came in knowing these things. So you are right now projecting to have 1.8 million by the age of 65. Let's say that your term insurance expires. You, God forbid, die at 66. What is your family going to get, even if you don't have life insurance? They're going to get the 1.8 million. Why do they say you get nothing? And this is an important thing because my new agent that I'm working with right now, his mom is basically stuck on whole life. And I got to go tomorrow and I'm going to meet with him and some of her other friends and we're going to straighten this out. And what she was telling me over the phone, she said, look, right now I'm 66. I have a $100,000 whole life. If my term ended right now, my insurance would be very expensive. And I still have this $100,000 whole life. And what I told her was I said, number one, your son makes 200, your other son makes 250, like your kids are doing well. And I know he told me you have a lot of properties, you have a lot of assets. No one's worried about your little 100,000. It's not going to make any difference in your situation, right? It's not going to make any difference in your situation. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. What was that?
You said it like that?
No. I didn't say anything like that. I'm trying to keep you guys awake. But one of the things that I did say, I said the reason why we are able to have this conversation today is because you're still alive. So you can say, look at me, I'm alive and I still have a $100,000 policy. What we're not thinking of is when the person dies. If you had passed away with just 100,000, that would have been a disaster. And if you go out and you recommend whole life to young families and families getting started or families that have young children, you are recommending to them to buy a policy where they are severely underinsured. They always talk about, oh, what if I live? How come no one talks about, yeah, but what if you die?
Right.
You only had 100,000. You just heard what he said, 10 to 12 times. Someone only making 50 grand needs 500,000-600,000. Imagine if you're making 150, 200. He believes you should have millions of coverage. But what can you get for whole life? A fraction of that, right? What are some, okay, so I like to use real life policies. So in my files folder on Apple and Google, whatever it is, right, you can save documents. So I used to, again, I've been in the business a long time. I used to carry a little briefcase. When I was 22, 23, carry a little briefcase. I'd have clients' policies where I'd black out the name and I would take out my briefcase and I'd say, look at this policy, right? Now you can scan things in and then you can keep it in a digital folder and show them those documents on your iPad or whatever. So now I show people this. These are real policies here, okay? And this is an older one, but nothing changes, right? Yeah. The dates change, the numbers don't change. So as you can see, this is a real cash value policy. It costs $2,000 per year, which is $160 a month, okay? It is only for 100,000 and it is for a 36-year-old male. So I put in $2,000. How much is my cash value? None. I put another $2,000. How much is my cash value? None. They tell you it's in the policy. So how can I borrow and buy real estate if this is what it looks like, right? Now, after 4 years, 2 times 4 is 8. I put in 8,000. How much do I have? 800, right? If we go from 99 to 2008, I think that's 10 years, right? I've put in 20,000. I'm 50%. So this is what Sheila talks about. She says that how can you say I'm getting tax-free gains if I'm at a loss? If there were any gains, you're right. They would be tax deferred, but there's no gains. You're at a 50% loss, right? It's insane. There's no investment out there that is worse than this. That's why he says that. It's the worst product ever. Why does he say it? Because after 10 years, you're still at a 50% loss. So at what point do I at least have how much money I've put in? This is 20 years, right? I've put in 40. I'm guaranteed to have 25. How old is this guy? 36. So after 30 years, at age 65, he has 42. He's put in 60, he has 42. You never even have more than what you put in. So this is another way to kill it, is to show people actual contracts, right? Questions, great questions to ask. When you run into someone who has cash value, you want to know, why did they purchase it? Here's a reason why asking questions is important, because you can get into all the explanations and kill it and all this stuff, and they could have just been like, someone sold this to me, I have no idea how it works. If you have something better, I'll take it. In that situation, right, you don't have to do that much presenting. So you want to know, what is it that you have to tackle? Let me ask you something. Why did you purchase this policy? Was it for the protection? Was it for the savings, or for both? Now, if they say the protection, that's an easy one. We can give you 10 times protection for the same cost. If they say, well, I got it for the investment, you go back 2 slides and you say, is that how you thought the investment worked? Did they explain that to you? You had a 50% loss 10 years into it. So it's a poor insurance because it's expensive. It's a poor investment because the rate of return is negative, basically, at best. Here's a good question. If you were to consider a change, what would interest you most? More protection, better investment, or both? So it opens the door for you to replace their policy, because they're saying, yeah, I mean, if you could show me a way to get more protection or better investment, I would consider a change. And now the burden is on you to prove that through the information we just presented today. So this is up for debate, but I think that as an organization, we should have on the tip of our tongues, 3 points that we can always tell a new person in terms of why cash value is so bad. So this is up for debate. If we want to come up with 3 better ones, we can. This is just on a whim. This is the stuff that I think about. Why is cash value bad? Number 1, very expensive coverage. What's the problem with that? The amount you can afford is far less than what you need. You need 500, you can only afford 100. So number 1 downside, it's very expensive coverage. Remember, that's the reason we're buying life insurance. It's not so you can live and you can get the money and you can borrow. You're forgetting about your freaking family, right? That's the point of it. So number 1, it's expensive coverage. Number 2, it's a horrible return on investment. If I did want to get into an internet debate, which I do not, right? But if I was going to go in the comments and start talking to these people, I would say, just show me an illustration where this is happening. It's very easy. You just, whatever policy you just last sold to someone, black out the name, show us the numbers like I'm showing you, and show me where this is happening. They put in this much. This is the cash value. This is how much they took out. This is the interest that they were somehow paid on their own withdrawal. I don't know, right? Just show us the numbers. It's a bunch of bullshit talking and lying and scamming, right? And no one is showing the numbers. I'm showing you what's in the policies. And one thing that I can say that not everyone can say is like, dude, I have money. If this is a better system, I would freaking be doing it. Oh, this is what the wealthy do. I do pretty well. I ain't doing that. Jack is wealthier than me. He ain't doing it. I've never heard Bruce do it. I've never met any of my wealthy friends that do it. So you can listen to the internet. I don't know anyone that's doing this. And number 3, you pay for 2 products, but you get 1. When you buy cash value, you pay for insurance and investments. It's bundled, right? So you're paying for 2 products. You're paying for insurance. You're paying for investment. What did he say? If you want the cash value, if you want the investment, you have to cancel the insurance, right? If you die, they give you the insurance, but then they keep the investment. So in no scenario do you get both, right? Now, I know when I say this, a lot of people say, what about option B on a universal and a variable? There are reasons they're able to do that. They just charge you so much more in the cost of insurance that there's a less chance of it building up, right? That's a different story. For the majority of the situations, especially for whole life, you are paying for 2 products, but you only get 1. But if you buy insurance from me and an investment from me, if you die, I will send your family a check, one from an insurance company and one from an investment company. So you pay for 2, you get 2. With them, you pay for 2, you only get 1. So let me know if you guys have 3 better points in this, but we have to teach every new person that's getting licensed when you run into this, what's bad about cash value? Expensive coverage, horrible return on the internal investment, and you pay for 2 products, you only get 1, right? Everything other than that is just philosophical, right? Like, we don't believe you need insurance in a later age because you are self-insured. This is another great phrase that you want to learn, or words, right? Becoming self-insured. Wealthy people really don't need, they can have it as a luxury. A lot of them do. They don't need life insurance at that point. Especially now, I don't know if you guys know this, there is no estate tax right now. It used to be a tool to save from estate taxes, but there is no estate taxes, maybe above a certain amount. But a couple of administrations ago, they got rid of that. And they can bring it back, but that's another conversation. All right, who has questions on this? You have something to say.
Yeah, Shaq from trade.
Who has questions on this?
It's not a question for the new people, because we got a lot of clients that they concerned about the policy ending, but you can convert that policy to a lower policy in the future, and and they can keep paying the same. So they say right now they get a 500,000 policy for 35 years, and they're concerned what's going to happen for 35 years, but they can keep paying the same. We just reduce the coverage at that time.
Yeah.
And they're going to have something.
Yeah.
So that's
This is a good concept. You're talking about our situation, right? So it's a good idea. if for whatever reason you did want that luxury of keeping your policy, at the end of 35 years, when you're 65, 68 years old, with no medical test, we will basically give you a new term. Obviously, it'll be at a lower amount, and you'll be able to keep it until you're 100 years old. We have a decreasing term until 100 years old. So the original term is called term 1. You have the option of going into term 2 if you want as well. So at 65, even if someone is sick, if they're not insurable, Primerica will give them a new term policy at a lower rate. They can keep the same payment, right? Or they can pay more for the same coverage, but you have those options, right? So there are situations where our clients can keep the policy as long as they want as well. But they're walking into that situation with a lot more cash because they made a good decision the last 35 years. Okay, so let me get Jenna. Go ahead.
What are some questions or phrases that you would recommend to a new person or even an old person to set appointments using cash value verbiage or like stuff like that? Right? How would
The
you
best question that I have is, hey, do you know anybody that has savings inside of a life insurance policy? And I've said this before, people say it, they get excited about saying, oh yeah, I do, my friend does, I've heard about that, we have that, right? Because they think it's a good thing. And then you can be like, all right, well, can we set an appointment because I want to show you what my company does and, you know, maybe compare and contrast. It'll just be really good training for me, whatever you want to say. But that's a good opening question that you can use. All right, Jen. Give it up for Jen, top producer of the week.